Hello and welcome to your show. It is SOUQ Pulse. And it's that time of the day when you just hear this direct byline and you know where you are. Don't stop talking. You know it's SOUQ Pulse, where we tell you call your friends. So even if there are no friends around, call your neighbors. Let's talk. You're free to argue. But remember, once we start talking, we don't get to stop because we want to create a change. We want to be heard. So we talk. So it doesn't matter what's happening in the business that you are in right now. Sometimes people say, hey, you're not talking about the workplace. It's still the same thing. Talk. Those conglomerates, it's still the same thing. Whether they are from your country or not from your country, whether you are outsourcing or direct sourcing or pre-sourcing, let's talk. Who is making the gains, who is losing, let's talk. In the last 7 days, the stocks have decided to tumble and they are climbing back gradually. We still talk. People focus a whole lot on what's happening in Asia as it concerns the stock market. It's gradually bouncing back, but we talk. So for those still looking at IMF loans, World Bank loans, we talk. What policies are they coming with? The ones that were taken, have they been paid for? Who took them? Are they responsible for what they took? We talk. Are you importing, exporting? What are the duties like? Is it crumbling your economy or is it making the other economy to grow? We talk. It's SOUQ Pulse where we talk and we expect you to do the same thing. We might not get dirty and talk about politics down to who is contesting that. No. We look at the policies. Those that get to those houses that are littered or crowned in gold get to make. But mind you, they are answerable to you. So we talk and let you know that it is you that is really the leader, not the person that is there. So hey, for you that have decided to let your powers out and let them be the one to make the decisions, let's talk. Today we'll be going somewhere that most people might not consider serious. But for everyone that is earning something, it concerns you. They will now start looking at productivity. If we say Africa should get productive, to what extent should we let our guards down? To what extent should we outsource? To what extent should we be in control of where the pot is? That's what we are going to today. My name is SOUQ, John Rogers SOUQ. It's a beautiful Friday in Lagos, Nigeria. And for everyone that's looking forward to the weekend, let's start it here. Now, for everyone that has walked into a banking hall in the last few days, for some people, I'm very sure you don't even know what the banking hall looks like. Thanks to technology, thanks to phone or your apps on your phone, banking softwares, power, everything that is happening right now. Now, for those that are not aware, Nigeria is one of those countries that is in forefront of breaking barriers when it comes to banking. Transfers is in seconds. Alert is almost immediately. You make a transfer, you don't get it, you start wondering something is wrong. Don't think it's like that everywhere, not even in the developed countries. But now, for those technologies that are powering this, have you really asked yourself, where are they from? To what extent are we contributing to them? How much is it costing those banks? That's what we're going to today. And we are looking at productivity as it concerns that sector, the banking sector, outsourcing African banks, tech support, software, application, and we are asking why. Yes, let me shock you. 99.9% of those tech is not coming from here, not developed from here. So we're asking ourselves why. It's been a long time coming. And to be part of this show today is he's not just a tech guru. He's one of those people that will cross you and you will be shocked if they tell you that Elon Musk might be looking for him. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we have with us on SOUQ Pulse today Mr. Seyi Akindeinde. He happens to be the founder of Hyperspace Neutral AI. Mr. Seyi, good afternoon and welcome to SOUQ Pulse.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Lagos. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm excited to be here and I like the topic. Let's go.
Thank you very much. Now, for those that are wondering, he's currently in a seminar and he's teaching some people something. And he had to make out his time and come stay here with us. When he said he could do Zoom, I was very happy because this is his space. So don't get shocked if he decides to pull up a particular item right now. You see him next to me. I will run first, though. You're welcome to SOUQ Pulse.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Thank you. Now, we are going to the banking sector. And for those that, if you remember in the days of, people say in the days of yore, not too long ago, I'm not that old, but I think I saw it. When you go to the bank and collect tally numbers and have to wait for your turn, if you're paying in money or you're coming to cash in money, if you have a check, just good 3 days. Now, we've moved away from there. But all through this period, Nigerians were, or Africans were in the front end, back end, be it the teller, be it who's collecting, be it the cashier, be it who is doing the bookkeeping, be it who is doing the balancing. Then tech came, then outsourcing came. All of a sudden, things changed, and it changed very, very fast. Now, my first question to the guru is this. What's changed?
A lot changed because at the time you were talking about, we were not prepared for this, the automation that was going to befall us. And we were sort of playing catch up. So we were used to the normal way. I mean, like you opened the statement, at the beginning where I remember I used to watch an advert that time where somebody would say, oh, tali number, that kind of thing. So we were at that stage of banking. And all of a sudden with the new automation that came in, we were not really prepared in terms of infrastructure, in terms of the skill, and in terms of what it would have taken. So we had to sort of play catch up to other people who had already taken this, on board. So essentially, it was automation that changed. It was the fact that a lot of the things we knew as banking, instead of it being manual, instead of it being, paper driven, and everything had to be moving from one desk to the other. I mean, back in the day, to open an account. In fact, I remember back then, to even up until as recently as maybe like 2000 and something, if you had an account in one branch, you couldn't go to another branch to operate it, just because, those banks, even if it was the same bank, they were not linked up together. So those were, but over time, a lot of things changed, technology came, and we now have what we have today. Like you said at the beginning, we can now do funds transfer and get it almost instantaneously. And that's what changed. Technology just came and took over.
Okay, technology came and took over. For those that are not up to 2024, I'm sure you are just wondering, what did that uncle just say? It sounded like fiction to you. It's real, 100% real. And we lived at that particular era, and it was a good life. Now, let's keep moving forward. Now, with this particular change, technology took over. Were there no homegrown solutions?
Well, there were none at that point in time because we were sort of not prepared for it. Even at and it wasn't really a bad thing. It wasn't just a Nigerian thing. It was more of a global thing because if you remember at the time too, not a lot of people even believed that technology could solve some of these things because in fact, it took some of these big banks, a long time to actually transition into technology, just because people just didn't believe that, it could work, But now, sometimes when you use something and it becomes mainstream or it becomes mainstream, you sort of tend to forget how things were back then. You remember that back then too, people just did not trust the process. I mean, even as recently as maybe 2010, 2011, when even ATMs and POS, people were like, I'd rather go to the bank and see a cashier and collect my money physically than one machine that would, that would make mistake, or that would, instead of debiting me 100 naira, would debit me. So people, it was just due to trust in the system. And I remember that a lot of these banks needed to do a lot of awareness, needed to do a lot of sensitization, needed to do a lot of this. So it wasn't that we're not prepared, it was that nobody really knew where it was going. So a lot of the banks too had to involve foreign people who had already built systems that worked. Remember that if you are introducing a new piece of technology, the last thing you want is for you to use a homegrown technology, and then you plug it in and it doesn't work. Then it is now going to start your customers are going to start looking at you as per what's going on here. You know, you are receiving debit alert where you have not done transaction. So it was better for them to actually start with what was working, what had worked in other parts of the world, what had worked in other parts of, you know, the globe. And then we start on that. And then our local people here too could now start to learn how these technologies work, how the financial systems work, how, accounting work, how balancing of books work. So those were the things that happened at the time. That was why there was no homegrown solution, because we didn't have any experience. We didn't have anything to draw up on. So we had to leverage on this foreign, technology. And that's how we got to where we are today.
Okay, now we have to leverage on this particular foreign technology at that particular point in time. Now, over time, now, I have seen, I have lived, and I've got a whole lot of friends and younger ones, that particular era, who joined banking. But one thing was common among a lot of them. A lot of them were coming from the tech side, though. But something I kept observing was they were shipping them to India for 6 months. I didn't understand what was happening. I just, okay, what happened? I got a job with this bank to work in tech. I got a job. The next week, this guy has left for India, and I'm asking myself, are you working in foreign affairs or you're working in a bank? Now, this is a trend that happened for a very long time and kept happening. This now brings us to our next question. How did Africa, Nigeria to be precise, come to be so dependent on India for bank tech support?
Thank you very much. To be perfectly honest with you, it is not only Nigeria and Africa that depended on India. A lot of banks, even in foreign, even as far away as even the US, depended on India, because India, number one, they had the population at that time, and then India started very early in software development. They started building. In fact, at the time, they had one institute called India Institute of Technology, where you didn't even have to go to university to go there. Once you were intelligent, as soon as from like age of 10, 11, 12, they started pushing, because they saw that software was going to rule the world. Yes, there were companies manufacturing hardware in the US, in China, but they knew that hardware without software was not going to work. So they started investing a lot in their younger population to start building a lot of the tools that people were going to use, which now included banking, core banking applications, because they felt that you had to build for a vertical. So we had companies like Infosys, Tata, Wipro. They now started investing heavily, and they started building, solutions. And the good thing about Indian government is that they encouraged a lot of these things. They allowed them to make mistakes that were not fatal. They funded them. So by the time the world, especially Africa, was waking up to India, had already leapfrogged. And you see, the thing about technology is it is a leveler. Whatever works in India will work in Nigeria. It's technology. The same computer you are using in Nigeria, Windows operating system. If you take it to US, it will work the same way. If you take it to India, it will work the same way. It's not as if they've made it for a particular region. So when they started building these core banking applications, everybody just found out that this thing actually worked. This thing, so people that were already using normal, relational database management systems, they transitioned. People that were even using Excel to manage this thing, they transitioned, because they just found out that this thing works. So they started building on Unix systems, they started building on Windows systems, they started giving it interfaces. And you just find out that if something works, why reinvent the wheel? They already built it, they've done. And when you're building software is not just that you build it and work. There's a lot that goes into it, a lot of development, a lot of teamwork, a lot of bug fixing, a lot of testing, stress testing, to make sure that it can cater to all manner of audiences, all manner of taxes, all manner of usages. And they had already built it. So when Nigerian banks just started implementing, they looked around and they found out that, wow. And then not to talk about the cost. Because if a Nigerian company or a local company was going to build that kind of software at that time, number one, they didn't even have the skills and talent. Even if they had the skills and talent, it was going to take a long period, and it was going to take a lot of money to build, and the banks just couldn't wait. So it was just better to buy something that was off the shelf and then implement. So that's how come we got to this stage. That's why you were saying, all your friends will just go to India, because it was easy for them. They had already built it. It was just a matter of going to learn it, going to study it, and then bringing it back home and implementing it and making it. In fact, if you remember that India itself, even some of the early acquisitions by even these global software companies that we're talking about, like Microsoft. For instance, Hotmail was developed by an Indian company that was bought by Microsoft. So India had already gone in software development, and they had already leapfrogged the world at that time. So it was just a matter of latching onto it and using it here. And that's how come we got to where we are today.
That's how we got to where we are. Now, let's look at dependency. To what extent? Because if we look at time, at that particular point in time, till this particular period, a lot of these people I'm talking about right now, they are all in management levels. It's been a long time. From that particular period till now, you mentioned some of the names of the Indian companies. Some of them even had to come here to Nigeria, and they are directly backing up these banks. To what extent have we outsourced bank tech to India?
I think to a very reasonable extent, we have outsourced it, because it just makes sense, especially when you remember that these banks are for profit. At the end of the day, there is nobody, you don't want to be a client of a bank or a customer of a bank, and you hear that, they are, they're making mistakes here and there, or accounts are getting lost. So there was nothing they could do. They had to actually engage not just the products, they had to engage the people so some of the Indian companies actually even came to Nigeria to set up here locally, so they can have tech support for a lot of these organizations. So to by and large, it is. I don't want to say 100%, but to a reasonable level, about 95%, we all depend on this, Indian software. We depend on these Indian companies. And remember that the core products of a bank is, in fact, there is no bank without the core banking application. So that is a major expense. And a bank cannot afford to do trial and error because you want to be patriotic and say, we want to grow Nigeria. But if the Nigerian products are not ready, and you see, there's nothing like a Nigerian standard when it comes to software and those kinds of things. It has to be global standard. Even when you look at if you look at all the CBN regulations, CBN is not going to tell you to regulate to local standard. They're going to give you ISO standards, international standards organization. So it's not as if there'll be a standard for our software. If it doesn't work like this here, we can manage it. No, it has to be global standard, because remember that a lot of banks also interface with other correspondent banking, financial institutions all over the world. And if your interface, maybe some interfaces for maybe moving some international is not standard, you wouldn't even join their network. So they needed something that was up to date. They wanted something that was standard, that was already built, that was already tested in other places, then they could use it. However, I think Nigerian companies too have over the years now learned that, we can build our own product to international standard. And what I see that they are doing, obviously, now is they're also starting with some of the smaller banks, microfinance banks. And then when those products are tested, maybe in the next 5 years, 10 years, we can start to see a lot of these Nigerian banks leveraging on local, banking applications to sell banking to us.
5 years, in the next 10 years. Okay. Yesterday, we were talking about Chinese trade policy. One of the major hinges on which they place their trade policy, the third one to be specific, is something that no matter what, sovereignty and security, national security. So let me ask you, if let's say 80, 90, 60, even more than 50% of our banks, major banks in Nigeria and those in Africa, have outsourced their major banking platforms to a company outside their territory, to what extent are we going to say security should have a question mark?
You are very correct. Information security is actually the number one thing. But you see, also in trade, there's something called comparative advantage. India has that. And you see, globally, if you want to be competitive, for India to even be selling the software, they have gone through all the, there's no bank that's going to deploy a core banking application that has not gone through international standards in terms of security, in terms of even the stress testing, in terms of the deployment, in terms of usage. So yes, while we should be concerned about security, I think the security should be put more on the people that are managing this infrastructure, because at the end of the day, if you implement and in everybody to one extent or the other, we are all using foreign products. I can imagine that the camera that you are streaming this from was not made in Nigeria. The software that is running it was not made in Nigeria. The laptop I am using to talk to you right now was not made in Nigeria. The software, the Zoom that we are using was not made in Nigeria, but we are still using it somehow because we don't have a local for it. And so a lot of software, they have standards they have to go through, and they are constantly being checked and being tested and being verified. So while security should be a of major concern, I think the security should be more on the, cyber security is about the process, is about the people, is about the technology. So while the technology is there, which I know that they've taken care of, we also have to not take away the process itself, because when you implement software, it's not just about software. You have to look at the process of implementing the software as well. How where you are placing them, how secure are the data centers, how secure are the servers you are putting them on. Then you have to look at the people more importantly, because we have seen in security that no matter how secure the software is, let it be 120% secure. If the people that are managing it are not trained, are not protected, then somebody can go in there and commit fraud, which is what we usually have. At the end of the day, you trace it and you trace it back to the people. It's hardly a technology problem. Most times it's maybe 5% technology problem, but a lot of these are usually process and people driven. So I believe that a lot of the security measures which we can control should be put on the people that are managing, a lot of this software and infrastructure.
A lot of the security measures should be put on the people managing this particular infrastructure, you say. Now, let's get to a point you made earlier on before we got here. You talked about Nigerian developers. You said 4, you said 5, you said 10 years. That's a long time. Now, let's go back to some of that statement you made way earlier. You talked about Infosys, you talked about Tata, you talked about some other ones. And you directly said they had government support in one form or the other. These are all quoted companies to be direct, so everybody gets to know. And for those that are wondering, yes, these companies are Indian companies. You get to see them on at the New York Stock Exchange. Yes, they are Indian companies. At what point should we say Nigerian governments should look at being able to support tech to grow in this light? Because if we identify industries where tech can offer this sort of solutions, we can directly, as a people, throw our full support on them. How will you advise the government, as a people, to follow a path?
Fantastic question. And I think it is already happening now. One of the challenges we've had before in the past was putting square pegs in round holes. So we were putting people that probably were better fit for other ministries in technology. But right now, you see that the government agencies of technology, that's NITDA, is being governed by a seasoned expert who understands the problem that the technology industry is facing. He's a practitioner that has worked in the sector before. The Minister of Communications and Digital Economy has also been, in fact, he ran a technology hub. All these guys that we're hearing about, Flutterwave and this Paystack, at what point or the other they have passed through him. So now we have people who understand the problems of the technology industry, and we now have those people. And number two, there are a younger set of people who are now seeing the trend, the global trend of technology, and which is why if you look at all the policies they are making now, They are not just paper policy. They are not just policies that, oh, is good on the paper, but when it comes to the implementation and execution, now they are driving more. In fact, every time you hear the NIDA DG or the Minister of Communications, they are always talking in line of, oh, this is what we have to put in place. These are things. They are talking about capacity building. They're talking about competency development. They're talking about the infrastructural needs. And they are also trying to look for partnerships to solve it. And that is a very, very, very good first step. Now, we already have something along that lines, especially in the payments. You see now that Nigerians generally are beginning to trust our local payment system, which was your introductory topic. Now that everybody now all of a sudden we expect that when we send funds transfer now, it should immediately, the beneficiary should receive it. It doesn't happen like that in the world, now because we have a central switch, which is powered by NIBS, the NIP, that was built locally, and that is a start, So once we start like that, and Nigerians start to trust that we can use our own local software, our own local infrastructure that was built. There is nowhere in the world where you sit and you send money to somebody and they receive. And not only that, you get a confirmation and they also get a confirmation. And, it is a very wonderful thing that is happening here. And I think that is what we can leverage as well. It's a starting point, because behind all those things that is happening, you have the telcos involved, you have the banks involved, you have the clearing houses involved, you have the switch involved, you have all sorts of participants involved. And for them to put that together and be able to transfer money even in the US, it doesn't really happen like that. That is a very good start that we can leverage on. Then we now take it up one notch and say, okay, now that we have already started doing this, what else can we do? We can now start to replace, this back end of banks. But it's not going to happen in a day. All these companies we are talking about, these providers, you can see that we even have local providers giving, all these Visa, MasterCard, they run for their money. We already have our own local card payment scheme. It takes, and it's taking years of that for users to be able to, trust that system. So it's not about pushing the technology and forcing consumers to use it. If a consumer uses something that works, like our funds transfer, even now, even if you do a funds transfer that fails, there's a regulation that says they must do the reversal within 24 hours. If we start to trust that system like that, we will now have more confidence in our own system to say, oh, this thing is actually working. Then gradually, we'll transition away from this Indian back end. Local companies will start to get more comfortable. They will take our laws, and all it needs is for one major bank to implement, and for people to see that this thing is working. You can even do this that you cannot do before. You can do this that you can, and people will start to adopt it. And before you know it, a second bank, a third bank, and all of a sudden we'll just have that ecosystem. But it will not work, because right now, when you are building this thing, you need an ecosystem of suppliers. You need an ecosystem of engineers. You need an ecosystem of implementers. You need an ecosystem of the security people. You need an ecosystem of backup. So even if you just build the software and you don't build the ecosystem, so if I'm using a locally made software, even if it works, and then the day I have issues with it, I don't have support, I don't have engineers, what am I going to do? So you need to build it, and that's what we're in the process of. So I think we'll get there. That's why I said maybe 5 and 10 years, because we're already building that foundation right now.
Now, I told you we're going to go somewhere, but don't worry, you are covered. Now, over the years, we've come to read, we've come to watch, and we've come to study, and we know technology is not gotten free. Either you learn it the hard way or the soft way, or you buy it, or you imitate it, or you share it if it's given, or you steal it. We've seen it happen all over the world. We've seen blaming, counter-blaming, US, China, Russia, US. It's all over the place. Let's look at the banking sector right now. We've had this technology for a very long time. I keep hearing my friends and the banking guys I hang out with call a lot of certain names. And is it not possible? Okay, first of all, can this country share this technology to us? Third, can we buy it off them? Can we imitate it? Can somebody steal it? Just educate us on that light.
Thank you very much. You see, what you have just said now is a global it is, in fact, if you're in the IT software sector, you will find out that that's why a lot of even these big giant corporations like Microsoft, you will see that most times, every time there's always antitrust trial, this using because software having access to the code is a superpower. It is because if you think about anything you want to do in this world, it's powered by software. You are flying a plane, it's powered by software. Car you are driving, it's powered by software. Even the lights that we have, everything back end is powered. So software is, and think about it too. If you look at go to the list of all the richest men in the world: Bill Gates, software owner; Larry Ellison, software owner; Elon Musk, software. Why is software so powerful? Because they know that this is a weapon. So when you say you want to steal it, it is very difficult to, even for the Indians have mastered, that's why they are even in the global talk, just like China is for hardware. India is for software, and that's why their government pumped money into it to be able to build this talent base. That's why, even think about it, the CEO of Google is an Indian man originally. Microsoft, Indian. All this, that's in fact, I saw one list one time. They're all Indians. Why? Because they understand the language of software. If you understand the language of software, you will rule the world. So it's not a matter of stealing it. It is a matter of policy. It has to be driven by policy. It has to be like maybe a Nigerian government wakes up one day and say, you know what? Everybody, just like Africa here, we're trying to drive everybody to agriculture. Imagine if the government of Nigeria just says, you know what, we're going to make IT technology free. Anybody that wants to do IT software, you will collect free laptop, you will have free internet, we will create a data center for you, a data park where you can just go, and we'll give you AC, we'll give you anything you need. Imagine you do that for 10 years. Nigeria will start being in the equation. You see, but it has to be driven from the top. It has to be something that is and it has to be a deliberate act, which is what, if you go to India, now that their India Institute of Technology is one of the most powerful institutes in the world. And they are not saying you must go to university, unlike here. So here, we're still at the point of, humans, we ourselves are still the ones driving ourselves. There is not a policy-driven thing, So that's why we are still lagging behind. So it's not a matter, and software is that if you look at all the software we are using now, how many of them originate, even up until spreadsheets? Do you want to tell me that a Nigerian cannot create a spreadsheet software? But if we can't create even as small as that, how much more a core banking application that takes into consideration so many things, which is why I like some of the things that the young startups are doing now to say, okay, you know what, let's take niche areas. Let's take, maybe somebody's doing something in tax related matters. Somebody's doing something in, payment system. Somebody's doing something in lending. Somebody's doing something in, financing. Then over time, a lot of these people can now come together and integrate, and then we now have one big, giant, powerful software. But without that, I'm sorry, there's no way we can steal it, because even if you steal the software, you need the talent. You need talent. You need a lot of skill to be able to build. We're not just talking about skill in programming or coding. You need a lot of you need high-level intelligence in the area of software architecting. You need project managers that understand enterprise-level software, but unless we get that locally, which is why, if you look at what a country like, I think was this Singapore that did that. They said, you know what, when a new government came in, they said, we're going to tell our people, this one is not that we will say they should not go and learn. We will bring in the foreign talents. They will come in, learn from them. You will make sure you create a policy that says it's not just that you are supplying us with this software. You are also training our people, so that when you train our people and you go, our people can take over. That's what we need. We need to make that policy that Indians don't just come in here and sell our banking software. No, you have to deliberately code some of them here. You have to open a software pack, and our people have to take part in this thing. Other than that, I'm not sure would be able to make it.
Have to get our people. You have to be very intentional about it, and we have to be as passionate as you when we are getting this done. Now, we have one last question I really wanted to address before we call it a day. Now, when we look at Nigeria, Africa as a whole, Nigeria mainly, it looks more like we are servicing the entire globe. we are servicing the West. A high percentage of those that are leaving Africa when it comes to tech sector are coming from Nigeria. So now, if we are looking at our ability to build this particular ecosystem, who is going to get it done? Because most of those that are leaving Nigeria are getting actively involved where they go to, the cities they reside, or their new citizenship, and they are well paid and kept there. So how do we encourage those that have decided to stay and the gurus like you that have decided to stay for now to do more or get active or get into the field?
Again, another great question. What can we do? A lot of these things have to depend on government policy. I mean, like even if you look across our university system and you look at the courses that students are still doing, it's almost like we're stuck in the past. Without that, people are still doing things that are irrelevant in this day and age. For you to have relevance, you need to move until we have maybe our complete educational system is restructured and overhauled. And then we have two demarcations for people who want to go to university and study the university curriculum. And then we have a track for people who want to be vocationalists, whereby maybe the only thing we'll do is after secondary school, it will be your maximum. Then if you want to go into vocational study, if you have gone to university to do things like the world is talking about electric vehicles. The world is talking about full self-driving cars. The world is talking about artificial intelligence. And then you go to Nigerian universities. How many Nigerian universities are offering courses in artificial intelligence? How many Nigerian universities are offering courses in advanced graphics and, all this infrastructure? We don't have. So that's why a lot of the people that have this dream to be a part of the global world, people are talking about, using AI for climate change, using AI for a lot of things. And when you come here, number one, you can't even study it. And where you are even able to train yourself and you go online and you study it yourself, there is no opportunity to practice. There is no infrastructure to do AI now. The kind of servers you need, the GPUs. That's why NVIDIA, this is one of the biggest companies in the world now, is right. How many NVIDIA servers do you have in Nigeria? How many data centers can afford a $500,000 one equipment server, and then you need maybe like 20 of it? We're already talking about $10 million. So even for you to practice, you cannot do it. So you need to find your way out of the country for you to be able to make. But again, it has to do with what can government. So a government priority, and I believe that technology, if you look at how we leapfrog, how Africa as a whole, especially even Nigeria, how we leapfrog technology landscape, where we move from having no communications at all, we bypassed the entire complete line and we went mobile. And all of a sudden, look at just what that mobile phone has empowered even a market woman to do, a malam, a security person. You can call now and tell the person, oh, clock my gate. Do you know the power that is inherent in that? It was government policy. It was during the 1999 administration that brought GSM. Look at that change. What's on mobile phone? So imagine if you now do this for education, you do this for technology, you do this for, it will empower us, and Nigerians will now stay back because they now know that you can now start to fund research. Right now, if I have an idea, do you know, sir, that sometimes if you have an idea and you want to go and file for a patent on that idea, the patent office will tell you, I'm sorry, we cannot grant you this patent because we don't even know, there's even no law. For instance, in artificial intelligence now, that you say you have a patent that can, help you do something in a way, and they'll tell you, we can't give you the right because there's no law that caters to artificial intelligence. So our laws are still bad. So even if you have that idea, you just have to go out of Nigeria to say, look, let me go and implement this idea and get thousands of dollars to build my concept, and then the world will know. So it needs to be driven from the top. It needs to be a deliberate effort from government policy, universities. We need to sit together, come together. And obviously for that to happen, you first need to provide people with food. Because if you don't eat, you can't even think. So when you have food, when everything is there, you have light. An average think sometimes, we often do projects with foreign people, and you see the level of project that their undergraduates are doing. Do you know PhD students here don't even do it? And the advantage they have is, over there, a lot of the things that we are sweating for, they take for granted there. Sometimes internet access, as simple as internet access, data is almost like air over there. They don't even think that they need it. But here in Nigeria, you pick up your phone. Even before I got signal to log into Zoom today, now I had to sit in a specific part of the house so that I can get it. If I move now, it goes off. So how can I learn if I have to be in a position so that means I can't learn. If I have an idea while I'm on the street, I can't implement it because there's no data. So those are some of the challenges that we have. And unless government comes with regulation and implement and make it a deliberate effort, I am sorry, every Nigerian that has an idea will simply find their way out. And that's why a lot of Nigerians are doing well in every field, of the world.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Seyi, Akindeinde. It's always a pleasure having you on SOUQ Pulse. I look forward to doing a part 2 of this particular topic again.
I look forward to it
too. Thank you very much for coming in.
Happy to be part of it. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Now, to everyone that has been part of this particular program for this beautiful Friday, remember this. We must get productive. We don't have an excuse. We will never have an excuse, because the further we run away from the truth, the more the hunger will bite. Seyi said a hungry man can't think and can't get creative. So if we want to run away from that hunger, we need to get productive. And for everyone that is working in this sector, or you have an idea, or you think you can't play in this sector, let nothing discourage you. Get in, learn. You mustn't carry a certificate to be able to practice when it comes to this particular sector. And mind you, if you have a system or you have an access to one, get out there and learn. We don't have an excuse. Neither will you ever have an excuse. The world is waiting to see us explode, and that we surely will. My name is SOUQ. John Rogers SOUQ. Remember, be your brother's keeper and never stop talking. It's SOUQ Pulse. Have yourself a beautiful weekend.